What's going on, you guys? Welcome on back to the channel. Now, as you know, Luffy is at his peak right now. He's attained Gear 5. He's Nika the Sun God. Like, he's an emperor. Like, Luffy is essentially at his peak of his peak of strength. Like, I don't think, like, now that he's beaten Kaido, I don't think there's really anything that can stand in his way until Emu or his potential fight with Blackbeard. But now that Luffy is at his strongest, I feel like we should. It's only right we go back and we look at him at a point where he was at his mentally weakest, and where he was at his mentally weakest, and he just got traumatized. He was traumatized. Where I and like a moment where I think Luffy was traumatized until like time skip, and that is at Sabaody. Now, Sabaody is an interesting arc, is a very complex and interesting arc for Luffy, because you see Luffy like at his like mentally weakest here. Like before we even get to the to um Luffy at his mentally weakest, when everybody's sent away, when everybody's vanished by Kuma, we have him punching out a celestial dragon. Now that moment is key because it shows that Luffy, like, it shows Luffy that there's a whole other hierarchy in the world that like he has to deal with at some point. So he has to come to terms with that. And then like now we move into everything that goes on with Kuma and Kizaru at this point of the arc. Now, Luffy, when he sees everybody start to vanish, when Zoro vanishes, that's when you know, like, that's when Luffy knew that everything was going to fall apart. I think that's when Luffy realized that, okay, Zoro is gone. Like, my second in command has been taken away from me. Like, that's when Luffy begins to spiral, right? Zoro's his first mate. When Zoro gets taken away from him, like, everything changes for him. Now this was already foreshadowed in the Baron movie for One Piece, where all of Luffy's crew dies. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen that movie. But yeah, when like this is already foreshadowed, like in that movie. So when you get to this and you see it start to play out, where first you see Zoro taken away, you see Usopp taken away, like like Luffy begins to break down because he's losing. Like, at the end of the day, he's losing his found family. Like, this is like, even though it's a crew, at the end of the day, to Luffy, this is a family, and he loves them all unconditionally at this point. So we once they start vanishing, we see Luffy do something that he has never done before in the entire story, and that's Luffy telling them all to run, get back. You're not strong enough to beat him. Like, we've never in this point of the story like see Luffy not have confidence in his crewmates, and he just wants them to run and get to safety so he doesn't lose anymore. He doesn't want to lose any more of his crew members. Like, this is his family, and like he's seeing them disappear one by one, and like with each one that vanishes, you see his mental state suffer more and more. But I don't think it truly hit me how much this was really going to affect Luffy until Robin goes. When Robin vanishes, that is like the final, the final point of Luffy's mental health just snapping, because Luffy and the Straw Hats went through hell and back to rescue Robin, and she's finally a part of the crew. She's finally happy. She's realized that this is her family and she wants to be a part of this crew. And then she's taken away from them again. And Luffy realizing that like he went through hell and back to get her back and he couldn't do anything to save her in that moment breaks him. You see like Luffy just break. He can't protect Robin. He couldn't protect Zoro. He couldn't protect Sanji. He couldn't protect anyone. And that cripples him. You see him break. You see him slamming his head against the wall or against the ground because he can't stomach the fact that he couldn't save them. He couldn't protect his crew. He prides himself on being the captain. Like, he prides himself on being able to protect everybody, to take out the bad guy that's threatening his family, threatening his crew. And this is the first time in the story where he can't do anything. Now, he gets his crew back, and they reunite and return to Sabaody. But I think this is an arc that sticks with Luffy throughout the rest of the series. Like, everything that happened in this arc of like influences Luffy throughout the rest of the story. It's the arc that inspired him to get stronger. The reason why he unlocked Snake Man, the reason why he got Tank Man, like the reason why he got Bounce Man. This arc is the reason why he needed to get stronger, because he wanted to make sure he never loses his crew, his family, ever again. And now, like, now Luffy's at his peak, but at the back of his mind, he still has that trauma that I don't think will ever fully go away for him. Like, as long as the story is still going, Luffy will have that trauma from Sabaody, and it will affect his choices going forward. Because at the end of the day, he's in the New World, and his friends, if he loosens up for even a second, they could vanish. And that's why Luffy got strong. He needed to make sure that this never happened again. He wanted to make sure this wasn't even a possibility in the future. And now, the way Luffy and the Straw Hats are now, that will never happen again. They're never gonna, I don't think they will ever be broken up like that ever again. But that's the reason why Sabaody is so important, man. It's the arc that truly broke Luffy, but it's also the arc that built him back up and is the reason why he's attained Gear 5 and the reason why he's Nika the Sun God now. It's because of this arc. If this arc didn't happen, I don't think Luffy would be the same character that he is now, and be as strong as he is, and be as pure and be as like powerful, and reach this state of enlightenment that he's reached for himself without this arc and going through all this trauma. At the end of the day, if you don't have Sabaody, I don't think you have Gear 5. And while that trauma will probably stick with Luffy forever and always stick with him in some little ways in the back of his mind, like, this arc is his biggest motivator to stay at top of his game. But that's pretty much going to do it for me, guys. What do you guys think? Do you think this arc is pretty much the reason why Luffy decided to get stronger? Do you guys also think Luffy still has like a little bit of trauma from this arc? And do you think like this affects his decisions and everything going forward? Let me know down in the comments below. This is something different that I wanted to try, talking about like kind of like the mental state of Luffy and all that. I don't know how good it was, but I wanted to give it a try because this was something I wanted to talk about for a while. And if you guys want me to talk about any of the other characters from this arc, let me know. All right, like, comment, subscribe. Talk to you guys next time. Bye.